I already made this video once, but I think I'm going to redo it because I had a coughing fit halfway through. And I know that's a trigger for some targets. So here we go again. So our Second Amendment rights are being threatened now. And ironically, it's not coming from liberals. Conservatives have been shouting for forever that, lying about liberals, claiming that liberals were trying to get rid of the Second Amendment, which of course is not true. They wanted reform, but not to get rid of it, right? And now it's actually going to be conservatives who totally annihilate the Second Amendment, okay? They're going to use trans people as an excuse, okay? Right? It's because of that shooting, which was a total psyop. Like, it was horrible, a horrific act. I mean, it never should have happened. I think there's speculation as to the nature of the person who did it. Some of the things that person said sound very much like he was being kind of, if not forced, then he might have been under duress. I don't know. But whatever the case may be, because some people are claiming that this person was transgender, right? This is taken off now. And the conservatives are blaming all transgender people for that shooting. Forget the fact that the majority of shooters, particularly school shooters, but mass shooters in general in the United States, have not been transgender. They've been straight, white, conservative, false Christian males. When I say false Christian, I mean they claim to be part of the mainstream church, but clearly they're not. If we think about what Jesus said, he had one command that everything else was based on, right? The golden rule. If you don't want it done to you, don't do it to others. These people do the opposite. These, in the conservative church, they call themselves Christian, and everything they do in the name of Christ, but they commit atrocities in his name. They hunt, they stalk, they terrorize, they rape, they kill, they commit femicide, they commit genocide, they lie, they slander, they destroy, they torture, all in the name of Christ, okay? And they do unto others exactly what they would never want done to themselves, and would never tolerate done to themselves. And in the end, it comes back to kick them in the ass anyway. They end up paying for it anyway, and then they blame anyone but themselves. Right? They claim to follow Christ, but they actually follow the Antichrist. That's the mainstream church at this point. And ironically, they condemn and they persecute anyone who actually tries to follow what Jesus said, which is just the golden rule, right? And you need empathy for that, right? You can't treat others the way you would want to be treated if you don't understand the situation they're in, whether or not you would want to be in that situation, right? That takes empathy, and they're condemning empathy now. But anyway, so the majority of mass shooters have always been straight, white, conservative, biological males who did not identify as trans, right? And the conservatives aren't saying, they're not threatening to take gun rights away from self-professed Christians or from white men or from conservatives. They've never done that. They've accused liberals of trying to do that. And liberals haven't been trying to do that either. But now that they can associate a shooter with the transgender community, now they're talking about gun reform, the conservatives. But what they're doing is they're not going to stop the actual criminals or the people who truly are mentally ill, sick in the head, from getting guns. Those men are still going to get guns. Instead, they're taking away guns from innocent people. Entire groups of people that the conservatives either don't like and want to destroy, or who they're just using as a scapegoat. Because in the end, that's what this is about. This is about scapegoating one community. Right now, it's the trans community, but later it'll be another. Because the goal of the fascist regime is to disarm the entire population, or anyone who might fight against the corrupt government, anyone who might try to save the United States from the fascists and from the terrorists. And it's coming from the right wing right now. Not to say that the left has never been involved, but what we have now from the far right is a complete takeover of our country. And they're killing legions of Americans while claiming to be saving them, right? They're getting rid of modern medical care. Women and girls are dying from pregnancy and birth-related complications again. They're getting rid of real medical care in all cases. They're cutting Medicaid. They're cutting, they're kicking sick and disabled people and poor people off of Medicaid. I mean, people are getting sicker and sicker and sicker and dying. They're getting rid of regulations that were meant to prevent pollution, and they're getting rid of regulations that were meant to check the food for contaminants, and they're getting rid of the system that warns people of weather emergencies, right? They're killing people in any way they can. The conservatives are, but and now they're trying to disarm the population, and they're going to do it by targeting one group. Initially they did try to use initially the fascists who want to take over, like the Russian regime for sure, and another country, they tried to bait the liberals into getting rid of the Second Amendment, but the liberals were not going to go that far. The liberals were calling for gun reform, but not annihilation of the Second Amendment. The conservatives are actually going to go that far now, because the liberals weren't stupid enough to let themselves be used to destroy our constitutional right. The fascists have gone to the conservatives, right? And they are stupid enough to do it. Not the puppet masters, right? The puppet masters who are leading all of this, they know exactly what they're doing. But they're going to the dumbest of all, the most barbaric of all, and they're using them to destroy something that they claimed they wanted to protect. Conservatives are now going to get rid of the Second Amendment, because once you decide that any group can have their rights taken away, that can be done to any group. Anyone can be accused of mental illness and then have their rights taken away. And I say mental illness at this point as an accusation, because when people stand to lose this much, if they're labeled as mentally ill, that's a threat. Okay, that's a threat hovering over their head. And it's a warning that they need to be quiet, right? Because anyone can be accused of that. Right now it's trans people, then it'll be gays, then it'll be lesbians, then it'll be women who speak up against abuse, sexual abuse, then it will be people who aren't conservative Christian, then it will be the wrong kind of Christian, right? It'll be anyone who opposes this sadistic, monstrous, fascist, conservative, right-wing, Christo-fascist, white supremacist regime that is genocidal, femicidal, matricidal, monsters, destroying our nation while claiming to save it. They get rid of science, they get rid of medicine, they get rid of anything modern. They claim that they built everything, but they're doing what their ancestors have always done. They destroy everything other people built, and they drag us back to the Dark Ages. If you disagree with them, they're going to call you mentally ill, and then they take away your rights. Right now, it's the Second Amendment, but they're sending people away now, right? Immigrants and even American citizens are being sent to those camps where they're dying there. Women are miscarrying there. Men are dying there. They're threatening to send the homeless and the mentally ill to institutions. One Republican even said that he wants transgender people to be institutionalized and studied to find out what's wrong with them. Anyone who's been targeted and knows what the targeting regime is knows you don't want people to end up in institutions to be quote-unquote studied like lab rats. Once this can be done to anyone, it can be done to everyone. And that's the point. The mental illness accusation has always been used as a weapon of war to get rid of opposition and to destroy people. Anyone who's seen as a threat or scapegoat group, right? To take away their autonomy, their financial autonomy, their bodily autonomy, their right to move around, right? Mobility. And of course, the right to self-defense. It's starting with trans people. It's not really about trans people. They're just the scapegoat right now. If the Republicans can get away with doing this to them, they will do it to other groups. More and more groups. Okay, their goal is to disarm the population as they take over our population. They're already firing any professionals who are intelligent and skilled and knowledgeable, right? And replacing them with mindless sycophants for the new regime. This is how you destroy a country. They're invading, right? They're sending the National Guard into cities, and now the Republicans are talking about sending the military and using the military against their own citizens. They're waging war on their own citizens, is what they're doing. And they want to stop us from fighting back. Disarming the population is how they do it. But they can't get the conservatives to agree to disarm the population by any other means than to use their primitive, animalistic, unintelligent responses and reactions to do it. So they work them up against a scapegoat group. They get them slathering at the mouth and frothing over some group that they've been told is their enemy. And because of how mindless they are, how primitive they are, and how stupid they are, they get worked up against that enemy, that group that they're told is their enemy, and they will take anything from that group. They'll destroy their own basic human rights just to destroy that group. This is how the more intelligent puppet masters destroy a society. They get the dumbest, the most barbaric, stupid, primitive animals in human flesh among them to allow it. You know, whatever the conservatives accuse other people of, they themselves are doing. Either they have done, they are doing, they're planning on doing, or some variation of that. Anything they accuse other people of is a confession of their own crimes. And this is just one more thing. They've always accused liberals of trying to destroy the Second Amendment, when in the end it's the conservatives who are going to destroy the Second Amendment. They're destroying our nation. You know, so trans people, you've got to be careful right now, because part of this and part of what we go through as targets of gang stalking, it's actually, that's what we call it now. That's not the technical name for it. It used to be called Zersetzung. It's a form of Zersetzung. Look that up. You got to be careful, because they're going to try to provoke you and provoke you and provoke you. And when you respond, they use that response to prove that you are whatever bad thing they said you are. Right? That's what they do. And when it comes to the PSYOP level provocations, what they'll do is they will have people follow you. They'll have people fuck with you, right? They'll have people make comments that reference your life so you get paranoid. And they want you to lash out in public, because some of their actions might seem totally innocent. But in other people around you don't know what they just said. Like, I've got people who I live right by a restaurant with outdoor seating. And I've got people there all the time, usually male, almost always Russian, right? They will reference things in my personal life. They'll reference my name. They'll reference names of my family members. They will make a comment about something, like if I trip and fall on the way to the toilet in the middle of the night, they'll make a comment about that, right? They'll show their target that they're being watched all the time, listened to, even in private, that they know about their target. They know the family members. They will try to provoke, right? Because in a situation like that, if you then look upset, nobody else knows why you're upset. So you look like the crazy one, right? You look like the out of control one. You look, and they can call you whatever they want. They can use that then to show that you're mentally ill. You're violent. You're this. You're that. You're right. That's what they want. And now, because transgender people are in a target group, right? Whatever you're accused of, all trans people will be accused of that, right? And it's not just you. It's the rest of us. It's the rest of them too. So you've got to be careful. They're going to try to provoke you in public. This is one of the main weapons of warfare. They try to provoke their opponent so that the opponent looks like the aggressor, and these warmongers look like the innocent victims, who then give themselves the right to quote unquote fight back against the so-called aggressor, when in reality they've reversed it. And two, it's hard being in a target group. You're hated, right? You're run out of businesses. You're run out of your workplace, your places of employment. Friends disown you. Family disowns you. It's lonely. It's hard, right? And some people are lucky. They have friends who stick by them. They have family who stick by them. But you still have to deal with society. When people are lied to about you, when they're cautioned against you, right? They're going to start treating you differently. That's part of targeting. They might even become hostile. They'll let you know they don't want you around. Eventually, this is going to affect someone. Right? People in that position, even if that's all that happens, they begin to show stress. Okay, they begin to show signs of distress. Of course they do. Now, the general population, right, of lackeys, right, they're not bright enough to understand cause and effect, action and reaction, right? They hear something bad about someone, they start treating that person differently, usually with hostility, with coldness, whatever. And then when that person responds negatively, they take that response as proof that there's something wrong with that person, either mentally ill or violent or whatever the case may be. They don't have the scruples to understand that when you treat someone badly, that person is going to respond negatively. And the puppet masters organizing all of this know that. They understand the stress they're putting you under, right? even the general population, if they have been lied to about you, if they have been, if you've been defamed, right? If you're treated badly, you're going to start showing it. You're going to start showing that upset. That's what they want. Then they can institutionalize you, justify institutionalizing you in order to quote unquote find out what's wrong with you. The puppet masters know damn well what the problem is. They're creating all of this. They're not stupid. Unfortunately, the masses of lackeys are stupid. So hang in there. Try not to react. It's hard, I know, but trust me on this. They want you to react. Right? It's just like, the Republicans are going to get worse and worse and worse and create more and more suffering and pain and death until the citizens as a whole have to react. At which point, what happens? The Republicans threaten martial law or to send in the National Guard, which they're already doing. We've been cautioned in Chicago to be very careful that what they want is a physical fight back, and they're going to try to push us to that so that they can justify doing worse. This happens on a grand scale, and it also happens to smaller target groups. Please be careful. I know it's hard. Be careful. And just FYI, don't join any groups that involve targeting other people, because you might think that you're going after someone who's guilty or deserves it, but you're probably going to go after your own allies. Remember, if you were lied about once and all of these people believe those lies, likewise, be careful that you're not included in a group that's going after someone else who's innocent. Yeah. Anyway, for those who still support this wicked regime, I don't know what to tell you guys, except, you know what? Friends don't let friends get dragged off by the Gestapo. Okay? What is going on? Like, if your mother or father or brother or sister or wife or husband or friend was getting dragged off by ICE and thrown into one of those vans, and they're going to be taken to the camps where they have a good chance of dying, are you going to shout at them as they're being dragged off? Hey, but remember, the other side was also bad. What? Can we just stop for a minute and think about this? Because if you wouldn't say something like that in that situation, don't say it to us now. This is a long video. It's like 17 minutes already. I'm going to cut this short. Sorry. Anyway, protect the Second Amendment, right? Liberals, you've been trying for a long time for gun reform, but the Republicans now, yeah, be careful what you ask for, because you're not going to get exactly that. What the Republicans are going to do instead is take the Second Amendment rights away from who they deem mentally ill, which is going to be groups of innocent people. But the actual people who are prone to violence are still going to maintain their Second Amendment rights. Liberals, please be careful when you push for these laws. You're going to get some version of it. It's not going to be the one you want. Later.